privilege to be here this morning. I want to especially thank His Highness and Madam for the privilege to be here. Thank you so much. I've come a long way in the corporate world. That seems to be all I have known. But I had also opportunity to function in the ministry. I recall I gave my life to Christ in August 1986. That's how I met His Highness, and we have come from that time till now. I started my career in consulting, and that was when I had my first master's degree, before I had my second master's degree in business administration and industrial psychology. So, in consulting gives you opportunity to be exposed to different areas of business. And after some years, about 9 years thereabout, I moved to the bank. And how did I move into the bank? Some team bought a bank, and they needed somebody who can help them handle the human resources and administration, and my name came up. So they headhunted me. And before then, I was telling my wife, I said, it's time to move. But I've made up my mind, I will not look for a job. I will not apply for a job. Anywhere God wants me to be, let Him divinely connect me. And because I understand the power of agreement, particularly when you are married, my wife and I agreed, as I've said. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't go to church that day because they told them that if you want to see him, either you go to the church or his office or his house. These three places. These are the three places you can see him. So they came to the church. I wasn't there because I was very busy in the office. I worked very late and I worked very hard, and God has been faithful. So they saw my wife and they told my wife that, please tell your husband we'd like to see him in the bank. We just want to have a chat. But before I went, the Lord showed me my salary. And where I was working in consulting, I have the car for 24 hours. I also have a house. So you can imagine, and this thing was happening around December, thereabouts, and I went. We talked, and we agreed. This was in December. They want me to resume in 6th of January. I have to resign. I have to hand over the house. I have to hand over the car. The issue is that where do I go from here? I spoke with my wife. We prayed, and the Lord told me to go. So I've never gone to any agent. So while I was in the office, I was just praying, and a name came to my heart, Onitiri. I don't know who he is. So I asked my colleague, do you know who Onitiri is? They said, yeah, he's an agent. He's a very popular agent in Lagos. Do you know where his office is? They said around Yaba. So during my break time, I went to Yaba in his office. I got there, I saw him, and I told him that I actually wanted a house around Iyke, which was where I was living. He looked, he said, the Iyke they have is going to be ready on 21st. I said, I need a house to move in December. He said, it's not possible. I said, but I said, the Lord told me to come here. So I left him, I sat down with a brother who actually is the head of the agency. And we were talking, and I said, God cannot misdirect me. So I sat down, I was gisting. I was there for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And an elderly man walked into the place to see the managing partner, that's the Onitiri, and he went in. I didn't know that the man has a flat, a 3-bedroom flat, ready to be occupied. And he went and told him that Onitiri ran out of the place, said, where is that witch? So that was how he said, let's go and see the place. We went there and they told me the amount. I didn't have the whole money. My wife and I, we had about 3/4 of the money. So when we finished, I asked the man, I said, how do you want it? You want cash or you want check? I did not have the whole money. But I trusted the Lord that because He's leading me, He make provisions. So when I told him, they said, today is 21st, and they are closing on 21st, and they are closing on 24th. So I must do the transaction if I have to take over the place before 30th or 31st of December. I said, no problem. I'll bring cash. I go home. Sometimes you can boast in the Lord. But make sure that the Lord is leading you. Very key. So when I got home, my wife told me, my wife's friend, a lawyer, told my wife that she's traveling to US and she has some money she does not need. That my wife use it when she comes back, my wife will give her back. That was exactly the amount to add to what we have. The following day, I took that cash to them boldly. I said, you said you needed cash, this is cash. So I kept the cash. The man said, okay, let's go and pay it back. We paid. When we finished, they said they need another breakage, whatever, 10,000. I said, 10,000. They said, okay. I said, I'll bring it tomorrow morning. I got to the office. One of my colleagues, Dr. Oshimove, he said, Iyke, I understand that you're moving into a new house. I have 10,000 I'm not using. Do you need it? So that was how I paid. And then I had to hand over my car. And we didn't have any other car. My wife's friend, who was getting married, told my wife that her husband has 2 cars and she has 1. There's nowhere to park it. He said, my wife, can you be using the car until when we need it? So that was how we got a car to be using. So I went into the bank. You know, the bank pays what they call reimbursable, which was enough for me to buy a car. So, and my wife now saw a sister really, and who brings in cars, and we saw a car. We said, okay, we'd like to buy that car. By that time, I've not received my first salary. So I was waiting till the end of the month. My wife also was waiting till the end of the month. The sister now told somebody and said, if they don't have money to buy car, why are they coming to tell me they want to buy car? You see, I've come to realize as a Christian, be careful of what you say. Particularly if the person is a child of God, consistently a child of God. So when she said that I had it, I told my wife we're not buying that car. So while I was driving from Iyke, while I was coming from Iyke, I saw a car. They just brought it and I said I want to buy it. I asked them how much it is. I transferred the money and I bought that car. You won't believe that car, that lady, mocked us on. Nobody wants to buy the car. Finally, she has to be the one using the car. Nobody wanted to buy that car. That was the journey we have. So while I was there, I moved from there to another bank. And from there, I moved. You know, those days, you can stay some years as long as you are somebody who can deliver, you know. So while I was there, another telecom called me. They wanted me to come. I went. And I rose to become an assistant general manager. And while I was there, this place where I am now, as executive secretary and the CEO of the chamber, came on. Why I'm saying this is that life is a journey, depending on what you make of it, particularly if you are consistent with God. He said he will direct you the way you should go. He will not leave you nor forsake you. So in 1984, my friend, who incidentally happened to be a director in the bank, told me, I said, let's go and see Bishop David Iyke. That was the second time I've heard about him. I've not related with him before. And he said, let's go. I said, I'm busy. He pleaded with me. So finally on the weekend we went and we got there, we saw the bishop and he introduced me to the bishop. While we were talking, one thing I found out that bishop will always like to use any asset that you have to add to his ministry. So he was not talking about, and he told my friend, he said, I found out that we need to find a way to connect all our branches and then be able to set, asset for them to be able to deliver. And that can also guide them. So my friend, I told him, this is the man, if you can talk to him. And that was the beginning of my contact with him. And on that basis, I had to be able to set the budget that link up the branches and also for the headquarters. And we found out that within that year, there was a turnaround. In the sense that, you see, as the branch pastor, you are the CEO. You are a mini CEO of the branch. And then you are the one who determines. Because there's a God factor, there's also a human factor. God will not fail. He will always do his own part. But you, what are you doing? And we found out that with that, you have something you can lay before God and say, God, help me. You know, Archbishop Odois will always say, there is nobody who asks God to help him that God has ever failed. And I believe that's what His Highness, God has laid in his heart, that we also need to grow. Because in life without budget, you have no base. There's no future. So everybody needs to have budget from experience. And you know that budget allows you freedom. I recall that when I joined the chamber and the board felt that, oh, I needed to ride a very big car. And they just, suggested, Iyke, you need to buy this, buy this. I went to a car shop. I got into a car shop. I asked them, how much is this? They told me. How much is it? They told me. You see, as the CEO, you are the one that will generate the fund, though. It's not them. Because at the end of every month, we have board meeting. They want me to tell them to perform, to deliver. Thanks, sir. To perform, to deliver. So you must be careful. So when I looked around, I said, I don't need a big car. I looked at, yes, it's a Jeep, but not too big. I asked them, what is the maintenance cost? They told me. I know that I can afford it. I can generate the fund. I can take care of it. So when I told them the car I bought, they said, why did you buy that? You don't know that when you go to a meeting, let them see you like they see you. I said, it's not the car you ride that speaks about you. It's what you are made of. And because God has ordered my steps here, he will not leave me nor forsake me. And that was the beginning of it. And I thank God I made that decision. I'm saying it because I know some branch pastors. You also have the same opportunity. You cannot spend what you can't generate. You can't. As a branch pastor, you have a responsibility. I'm talking about from experience in ministry. You generate and you also have a percentage return to the headquarters. I don't know whether that's how you do it. So that is it. Let's look at some Bible scriptures that tell us about budgeting. If you look at Luke chapter 14, verse 28, a lot of us are very familiar with it, NIV. It says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Luke chapter 14, verse 28. We look at Proverbs 24, verse 3 to 4. It says, through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. And by knowledge the rooms shall be filled with all precious and pleasant riches. If you also look at Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6 to 8, it says, go to the ant, sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, who having no guide oversees or rulers, provides her food in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. Praise the Lord. And finally, Proverbs 27, verse 12 says, a prudent man sees evil and hides himself. The naive proceed and pay the penalty. One of my directors was telling me, he said, Iyke, before the COVID, my organization makes so much money, I was tempted to increase salary. I was planning to pay more to people. He said, but something in my spirit just told me, go and save it, go and invest it. And he said that was how he invested it. And during that COVID, business was not going. It was the investment that was able to maintain and pay people's salaries at that very particular time. You can imagine if he didn't do that, what would have happened? Let's look at budgeting basics. Budgets are used for both planning and control. Planning requires high-level decisions about priorities that line up with a strategy. Controlling ensures that management, bishops, I'm putting bishops, because I have bishops here, pastors implement what was planned and achieves organizational ministry objectives. If you don't have a deliverables, then there is nothing you can look and say, I've delivered. At the end of every month, you must ask yourself, have I done my work? To be able to say, God, thank you. Because whether you like it or not, God has given everybody the grace. It depends on how much time you want to use to deliver that privileged assignment He has given to you. We all have 24 hours. I always tell my wife, she met me working. So you mustn't complain that I'm working late. Because she saw me, she met me working late, and she loved me, and she married me. When I look at the middle of the month, when I look at what we have achieved, I start praying and I start working. Because there is a God factor, there is a human factor. Reason your church did the budget. Church use operating budget to plan and control spending so that resources are used on ministry priorities. 1, planning. Achieving objectives does not happen by accident. You must know that. It takes a plan supported by budget to achieve the strategy. The budget process encourages a church to plan and set goals that provide a structured process for funding church-wide initiatives. An experience has shown me that when you have a pastor who is target-driven, and when you are praying, the Holy Spirit will drop into your heart what to do at every challenging situation. I used to know a branch pastor those days, when I was still handling some things in Bishop David's ministry. You find out that when it's going to almost towards the end of the year, the pastor will say, I am supposed to deliver this. This is overhead cost. This is project. This is level I've gone. This is what I need. He says sometimes the Holy Spirit will just tell him, do a business meeting. And he said all those small traders, small business people around are all invited. They want to make progress. They will come. He said at the end of that meeting, he has enough to take care of the expenses and also be able to meet up the headquarters' demands. That is wisdom. Because they know, if some of you know, at that ministry, you cannot say you haven't performed if you want to remain where you are. Because the ministry is target-driven. And if you are called by God as a pastor, it means that God will surely divinely connect you to where that treasure is. He's never late. Evaluation of performance. When goals and objectives are budgeted, they can be used as tools to evaluate performance. Like I've just said, you have targeted what you want to do. You have already budget for it. At every point in time, you're asking yourself, how am I doing? How are we doing? Even me, myself, where I work, I joined the organization. Their investment was 62 million. Investment was 62 million. And I looked at it and I said, I will almost triple this. Today, the investment is 200 and something million, going to 300 million. So when we were in the board meeting and I'm talking about it, when they raised some things, I said, remember where I met you people and where we are now. So when I ask for something, they oblige me, but they also, because most of the people are you're asking somebody representing MTN, you're asking somebody representing KPNG, you're asking somebody different organizations. All of them are big guys who are big directors who are, technocrats in their own fields. So you can't bamboozle them. Nothing, you can't. So for you to make presentation, you must know what you're talking about. For instance, this month now, at the 3rd week of this month, I'll present my budget for approval. And then every month at the board meeting, I will present my deliverables. How have you performed? Because monthly, you are expected to have areas you have performed and deliverables. If you are not performing, you will know. But because you want to ensure that you are doing well. See, if you see where we are praying at times, I have about 1 or 2 people that always, you will think that something has gone wrong. Obviously, something has gone wrong when you haven't met your target. So you need God to do something. And God has always been faithful. Always been faithful. Strategic allocation of resources. Budgeting helps to facilitate strategic plan implementation by allocating resources to church priorities. Church priorities. There are things that are not necessities. You know. If you want the church to grow, there are basic priorities that you need to focus on. And you must also understand that if you want the people to deliver, if you want the people to give, you must feed them well. Because I know somebody who has been fed well finds it very easy to release. They run back to you, which is very important. So strategic planning process identifies areas of priority. These church priorities require budgets to get them done. Number 4, global understanding of resource allocation. Global understanding of resource allocations. Budgeting improves communication throughout the organization or ministry because everyone understands what the priorities are, and what resources are allocated to them. When you know each of the items, what the budgets are, you will not ask for more than that. You won't ask for something that is not budgeted for. And that is the reason why you ask for extra budgetary approval when it is not budgeted for, or when you are trying to spend more than that. But you must ensure you have the resource. I'm sure you know that when your budget is approved, if you have generated income more than that can take care of extras, what you need to do now is to seek the ministry board, depending on our process, approval process, to approve a particular thing that you already have resource for, not what you don't have resources for. You know, sometimes it's very easy for, if you are somebody who is not, if you're a pastor who incidentally is not in-depth in how ministry works. I'm sure you know that ministry nowadays is different from how it used to be in those days. Ministry is a business. It's a business unto God. And that's why you can see the scriptures, there were accountabilities. There were actually accountabilities mentioned in that area. So you must be able to know that if everybody understands what is budgeted, they will not ask for extra. That's why you carry everybody along and help them to understand this is the budget for this is the budget for this, and that makes a difference. Responsible stewardship of church funds. And you know, as a child of God or as a pastor, you are accountable to God. So you must be disciplined. You must be disciplined. And planning are the cornerstone of a church budget process and are critical to good stewards of church funds. Let's look at some policy statement which His Lordship, who God has privileged to be the head of the ministry, is the one who is authorized to give consent on anything that become operational. I'm sure you know that. The same thing applies when you, in an organization, you have the board, you have the chairman of the board, decisions are taken, they are signed off, you find the CEO and the chairman signs off, which is what I do every month, kind of. So let's just look at from that perspective that budget and budgeting control monitors monetary operations to ensure that planned objectives are achieved. This is done by 1, planning desired financial results by establishing target levels. Target levels. You look at every month, what do you want to achieve? How can you achieve it? Allocation of responsibilities for achieving results to particular individuals. Subsequent comparison of budgets with actual results. Analysis of variances. I'm sure you know that sometimes you could budget for something, you could plan for the month, you might exceed it, you might under-deliver. You must always have to explain why that happens. That is very important. For instance, if I say I'm supposed to have 40 souls saved in a month, and you have budgeted for it in terms of some expense, and here every Sunday, His Lordship will bless food for some people, isn't it? That is budgeted for. And if something happens, you either overspend or underspend, you must have an explanation for that. But in very strict organization, when you spend more than is approved, somebody can be sacked for that, I'm sure you know. Because that expense was not approved. It was not budgeted for. So that's why you ask for extra budgetary approval before you incur it. And you will know when you are going to have more than that. Okay, a budget projects anticipated results of management decisions, allowing management to address critical issues, e.g. cash shortfall, anticipating rather than on a critical basis, and as a result, consider alternative courses of actions. Let's look at some benefits that are key. Assigned responsibility for costs and operational control. I'm going to run because I don't have much time. Provides a communication device between management and operational personnel. And that's why there's a link between the branches and the headquarters. And if there are issues, they will let you know on time so you can adjust before the end of the month, somehow as it is. Provide a benchmark for evaluating actual results. Strengthens and formalizes the financial planning and management functions. You know, some of this was why, when I recall some years ago, around 1995, when they said, Bishop said, no, we have to ordain you a pastor. I said, no, I don't want. Because I said, I've not been able to account for myself alone. How much am I accounting for everybody? And again, you should also be sensitive to know that except the Lord calls you on a thing, you'll be frustrated. That's very key. So you must be sensitive to that. But when it is time, you will know. Developing a budget. For every budget, there is a person responsible for the figures. For instance, when we talk about the headquarters, you know, there's an accountant, I believe, and all this is outcomes. He will actually get all of them integrated, and then we can have branch headquarters, and then people are advised as per what their performance is. Every budget covers a period of time. There are people, it's quarterly, there are people, it's monthly, there are people, it's annual, depending on the management needs and monitoring policies. For the ministry, budget will be prepared on a monthly basis for 12 months of the fiscal year. Why it's very important in the ministry, I mean from experience I've had, is that you are helping the pastor to know how they are doing so that they will know exactly what to do. You know, there's something about prayer. When you are target-driven in your prayer, God is also target-driven in responding to you. You cannot just pray a general prayer. You must have what you are trusting God and why and what it is. So that God's side will be done, but your own side will connect with God and there will be results. That is very key. So let's look at how developing a budget. That's what we're still talking about. When budgets are prepared, a knowledge of policies, guidelines, and objectives are essential. They form the basis on which assumptions are made. Figures are built using this assumption. You know, I recall when I joined the second bank, they also headhunted me. And when I got there, there was one of the directors who was in my previous director. They were the people who were stealing money. And we were telling them, this is wrong. So it got a time they told me that, Iyke, come, you don't have a house. Let's buy a house for you. I said, I don't need a house. At the right time, God will give me a house. I said, I cannot kill myself with this blood money. That's what I told. The man looked at me and said, you look for us, you know. And I met him there. And while we were talking, the MD said, I looked at your CV. I'm very impressed with your experience. And the guy said, oh, he's coming from CDB. Okay, I know him. I said, I know you too. you know, there's something about when you are not looking for a job, and it's not that you have a shortfall of ideas or skills. I'm the one going to do a favor. So the way I was talking with the man, he was even surprised because he thought that I would be, say, oh, no, sir. I said, no. So along the line, when he started, I told him, you see this job, I'm doing you a favor by coming here. You're not doing me any favor. He said he knows, but he just felt that, that time I was among the team that was saying people were stealing money. I said, yes, but people were not stealing money. They were stealing money now. There's something about being a Christian and blunt Christian. You can talk when you are saying the right thing. With wisdom anyway. with wisdom. I didn't say you could, you know. When budgets are prepared, knowledge policies, we have talked about that. Okay, budget to be prepared includes income forecast, you know. They are projecting their expected incomes, staff requirements, capital investments, overhead expenses, which has to do with general administrative or something, cash flow budget. Every budget ends up in monetary terms, you know that. Even if what is going to be is an asset, you monetize it so that you have something to refer to. Fiscal year runs in line with the ministry's policy, January to December or April to March. Every ministry can decide what their fiscal year will be, you know. That's and as approved by the lordship or the overseer, as it were. Then the difference is called a variance, which I mentioned earlier. Reason for variance needs to be explained and appropriate steps taken, if adverse, to correct accordingly. In some cases, budget figures are below actual performance, resulting in favorable variance. Such require budgets to be revised to reflect more realistic figures. You know, there are times you find some pastors, because they want to impress the bishop or the presiding bishop, they will, you know, high rate their performance. So when you look and say, this is a beautiful budget, and you find that that is not realistic. That's why we talk about SMART goal, something that is specific, measurable, and realistic. Very key. So you can start from where you are and grow to where you want to be. You recall the book by Joyce Meyer. He said, enjoy where you are on your way to where you want to be. So start from where you are on your way to where you want to be as a pastor, as a bishop, as it were. So instruction to try forecast based on 1, available past data, level of operations. I know that for me, I don't, when I prepare budget, I don't look at, you know, some people use the baseline. In other words, you are looking for what you did last year, and then some people say, okay, let me put 10% as it were and all that. But I don't seem to buy that idea, because I believe that you should do activity budgeting. Why is that necessary? Last year, you may have done something, and this year, you may not do up to that this year. Do you understand? For instance, we are talking about painting the buildings. You painted the building last year. You may not paint it this year. So if you are using the baseline, you will still add money about maintenance, which will give you wrong information. But if you be able to identify those items that are involved, this one, which one are we going to do this year? Which one are we not doing? Then you begin to pinpoint the cost of doing them. That will give you a realistic budget, which is very important. So let's look at department and branch. Please project your monthly staff needs for the year 2023. This includes those presently with you and those you foresee you might need to employ in the course of the year. Indicate the month where you will need to employ them. The information will be helped. But when it comes to staff requirements, remember that you can't hire a staff you can't pay. You cannot hire a staff you do not have the ability to pay. You do not have the resource to pay, even if that's the best staff you have. Because you are privileged to function in the church, there are opportunities to get people who will give you free service. Free service, if you ask, oh, who are the people in this area? And then they work, and they even give you more than what that one person could have given you. So you must be able to know how to utilize what you have to achieve what you want to do. It's very important. So, if you look at, again, we look at areas of maintenance. We are looking at motor vehicle, if you have any. We are looking at office equipment, house furniture. We are looking at staff quarters, if you have any, sanctuary. We are looking at land. We are looking at others. And in the ministry overhead budget, you have gifts to the ministry. I know in those days you find out that when your presiding bishop is doing his birthday and all that, you find branches where you join hands together to get something that's critical important. So every year you do something. So you have to budget for it by yourself. But most times it should not be the ministry money. Do you understand? You can't bless the bishop with the ministry money. It's not done now. If you want, that's why a pastor must be strategic in your plans. You can sensitize your members. Oh, our general overseer birthday is coming next month. We must do something from this local branch. And as I sensitize them, they're excited about it. And then you begin to plan. If there's anything you want to support for us to do something, please support. And you give them time, a month or two or something. People can be dropping little by little. Before you know it, the branch will be able to do something. Don't use ministry money to bless your general overseer. You don't understand. God is the one who has called him. You can't use the money of what God has called him, delegated to say, you're not blessing him. I don't think it's really right, yeah? Okay, so you also have the area of rent, property acquisitions, fuel, diesel, NEPA, telephone, courier, general maintenance, also in that area. You know, this day and time when the diesel expense is very high, it calls for wisdom. Because you may not have budgeted for that, but you also have to ensure that things are done. And wisdom demands that there are people you find that you use fuel generator. All you need to do is to put off ACs. You are not going to die. You don't need, do you understand what I'm saying? You have fan that can blow you. The air you want, fan will give you the air you want. Forget about AC for now. Otherwise, you kill the ministry. I recall there's a bishop who was telling me about 20 years ago. He said, if I mention his name, you all know him, you know. So he said, Bishop Abioye, he said, when he started in the ministry, he got a time when people bring Coke, he said he does not drink Coke. Because the money he's given as allowance, if he drinks Coke, he will kill his ministry. So he will tell people, oh, when they say, Reverend, why don't you say, no, I don't drink Coke. You know, there's too much sugar. He said, as things begin to improve, he now send them to go and buy Coke. Some people will ask him, oh, but you say you don't drink Coke. He said, that was then. Because there's a level you are as a pastor. There are things you shouldn't eat. In short, you shouldn't even patronize, you shouldn't even look at it at all. There are places you shouldn't visit so that you don't get tempted. Because there are pastors who have been so tempted that use the ministry money to buy things. It's not your money. It's God's money. We also have other such of experience like programs. You must plan for your program. You must plan for your training. You must plan for your guest speakers. And you know at that time there are guest speakers you can't invite. Do you know that? You cannot invite a bishop in a local church except it's from the headquarters. So headquarters will take care of that. They say we are sending a bishop to speak because it's a special time. But as the Lord leads you, you must only invite people who have God's guidance and God's directions. There are people you invite to your church, they will kill your church. There are utterances people can make, one, that can destroy the church. And that's the reason why, as a pastor, you must be sensitive. Whatever you want to do, hear from God. And when God is the one guiding you, you will succeed. If you are somebody who is also handling some legal-related things, you also budget for legal fees. Holy Communion anointing, I recall that, you know, the last one we understand that cost of these things are increasing. So you must ensure that there is no wastage. It is not that somebody will tell us, I'm taking home. When you go home, use bread to do your own Holy Communion. This one is not for that. If you have security, you have auditors as it were. These are part of what makes a difference. These are part of what makes a difference. So what I believe we are going to do is that we are going to start from the elementary. Simple. We need a list of your requirements. You are the one who knows the cost of some of these things. And you understand, for instance, if I need X material and I need 20 of it, it means that you have X unit cost and total amount. So that as you are budgeting, they will know how you get that total amount that you are projecting as part of your budget. I'm sure you know. And all that. And then when it comes to the staff, you also must ensure that you are accounting for staff you can pay in terms of salaries. I recall that there are staffs who started with little amount in the ministry. And you find because God is the one who ordered their step into that ministry, before you know it, they have exploded. And there are also some places you find the pastor does not even need a salary. He's paid salary because he has blessed people and they've blessed him in return. It's your work. It's just like me. I cannot play with my work. It doesn't matter who you are. My wife knows. I recall one day there was an issue. They called me around 1 a.m. I told my wife, I'm going. Pray for me, I'm going. And I got there and I got it resolved and I went back. It is my work. Anytime, which is how I do. When I was in consulting, when it was time to go, I'm restless. I tell God it's time to move. And God will divinely connect me to another job. When I was in the first bank, it moved. That's actually how I move. Because I know that wherever God has put you, you will not be frustrated. He will give you the wisdom, the skill that are needed to excel. And I pray that the Lord will help each and every one of us in every assignment he has given to us, that we will excel and we will testify. Do you know how beautiful it's going to be?